8 years ago. There's a 10-year-old boy watching TV, and he sees what appears to be his father's severed head hanging from the hand of a so-called comedian. He's horrified. He runs and tells his mom. He's screaming, thinks it's actually his dad. His mom has to calm him down. Horrifying for any child.
Welcome to 1850 Main Street. Come on in and pull up a chair. Today, Rob Walgate from the American Policy Roundtable and Alan C. Duncan, executive producer of the Public Square Media Network, are at the table by the fireplace.
I've got a son who's almost 10 as well. Can't imagine him seeing something like that. Fast forward 8 years. Today, that 10-year-old boy is a young man. He's 18 years old, and his name is Barron Trump. And he just helped his dad win a historic victory for the U.S. presidency.
He did, and he was on stage on election night. He
towering over everybody. Now, you know a thing or two about having a tall child.
I don't think he's as tall as Barron.
Not quite.
RJ 6667. Barron looks like he's a big boy because, Donald Trump's tall. Melania's tall. Yeah. He towers over everybody.
I was hearing he's 6'9". Could that be?
Oh yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Let us know down below in the comments, please.
Oh, people don't correct people on the internet. That doesn't happen. No.
Okay.
They just,
all right. Well, my mistake.
Yeah. You think about your 10-year-olds and the things they see, and we all as parents try and protect them, protect their eyes. But that's something that got out there that Barron was able to see. And of course, that image of Kathy Griffin holding what appeared to be the head of Donald Trump, art, comedians, whatever they want to call it. What's interesting to me is the people that thought that was fine and dandy were offended by a comedian making a garbage joke about Puerto Rico. They made a joke about trash and everyone was offended. But yet it was fine. That's where you just got to look and shake your head. But yes, Barron Trump helped his dad get back to the White House.
And none other than Time Magazine is breaking down that story. Time Magazine they were the ones that broke down the 2020 election, right? Kind of like a big what happened thing. I think we talked about that on the Public Square radio broadcast.
We did.
As well.
And this article that Time goes into, I believe it says, everyone always says what read length there is on the article. I believe this one's a 19-minute read. I was like, 19-minute read before I read it. So I prepared adequately, refilled the coffee, did everything I needed to do.
I'm grabbing mine now.
But it dives in to the fact of how this election changed and what in fact went into it. And a young man, 27-year-old named Alex Bruesewitz.
I believe that's how you say it. Yeah, again, correct us.
Yeah, he was tasked with some aspects of the campaign as it pertained to social media and other things.
Yeah.
And he came up with the plan to put Donald Trump on podcasts. And I believe he called him, right? He was on the golf course. I know, shocking. Donald was golfing. And he called him, and I guess President Trump said, what does Barron think of it? Or have you talked to Barron about this? Basically, he was like, no. He's like, ask Barron. And then I think they said abruptly. That was like, Donald Trump must be like Pat Bubb, like my father. There's never it's just.
You've got a little bit of that too. The quick hang up.
I do?
Yes. Yeah. You've got that. You got the quick hang up.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe it's genetic.
It could
Are you
be.
Sure?
I am sure.
Do I say love you first?
Maybe to some people.
So he Alex Bruesewitz tracked down Barron Trump. He ran it by him and he gave him a list of.
Yeah, Barron had his own list.
Yeah, Barron had a list. A list of people and podcasts that his dad should visit. And he did that, from the Nelk Boys.
Yeah, Aiden
Ross, Theo Vaughn, and of course, the one that over 45 million have watched.
Yeah.
And you can't even put a number on the amount of times that clips from the episode has been shown. And that's, of course, Joe Rogan.
Yeah, that's the thing. And that's something we're starting to do with 1850 is try to pull different clips. Because then that can get spread around a lot quicker than listening to a full podcast. Yeah. So you need both.
And to get off on that a little bit, that tangent of podcasts, some people say, you hear people talking, they say, well, the left needs their Joe Rogan. Did you watch Joe Rogan 5 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever? I mean, he had Bernie on. He
endorsed Bernie, I believe.
He was in that camp. He believed in those things. And then the left just kept going off a cliff. And he was like, whoa, COVID happened. So many things happened. And the left just went, I mean, he was with them on what wasn't he with them?
Maybe guns, I think, was the only thing that he really wasn't with them was on guns.
Maybe guns, but I even think in some of, you probably could have had him with them in some capacity on those.
Well, he's such a hunter, though. So,
but I mean, he wouldn't be for taking them all away.
No.
But I mean, other checks that they propose or different things that they propose. So Joe Rogan was there. I mean, he was talking about Bernie. He was talking with Bernie. He was, Bernie was on the podcast.
Well, and I do think that. Well, and Kamala was invited on as well. So I think hopefully they're rethinking their strategy. That's a mistake. I think the Democrats as a whole need to look and say, have we gone too far left? That's something that I ask my friends who would probably consider themselves on the left, maybe progressive. I say, listen, we know when the right goes too far right. Okay, we've seen nations that become so nationalistic that they hate other races. When the right, and that's not actually conservative thought, but just
I hate the terms right, left.
Exactly.
I mean,
those come from the French Revolution anyway, I believe, which we're not trying to be a part of. So, but again, people know when you kind of slink a little too far to the right, get off my lawn type stuff. But have we ever drawn a line on the left and said, okay, that's too far? For polite society, that's too far left. For civil discourse, that's too far left. And so I think that the nation is having a reckoning with that right now.
They are having a reckoning. And I think we're also having a reckoning on the fact that, we have a mental health issue in this country, in the fact that corporate media has called a group of people or called an individual, a fascist, a dictator, all these things. You have people after the election that are truly scared. And I'm like shaking my head thinking, what? But they've been watching it for so long that they've been led to believe it. And I'm like, wait a minute, let's think back. This same person was in office for 4 years.
Right. Well, and that's the other thing is if you look at Joe Biden coming out and addressing the nation, and you look at Kamala Harris in her concession speech, they're telling people, hey, let's have a peaceful transfer of power, which I appreciate. They're saying it's going to be okay. Kamala's saying, hey, it's going to be fine. If you really believed that he was Hitler, why is everything going to be fine? Yeah. So it just, again, I'm glad that she's trying to tone down the rhetoric, but that just proves you were lying the entire time. And I think people started to get wise to that.
Yeah, I think so. And again, back to the podcast, back to the young men, the young men of all demographics, of all races, of you name it, they supported Donald Trump for a variety of reasons.
They did. Well, I've got this Time magazine piece pulled up again. It says that nationally, Trump's support among Latino men leapt from 36% to 54%. So they must not have been all that offended by a joke about, about an island of garbage, which again, not a great joke, but it must not have been so offensive that the majority of Latino men turned out and voted for Donald Trump. It also says that Trump increased his share of voters without a college degree, gained ground with black voters in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. And this was amazing to me, and held steady nationally with white women. You would have thought the sky was falling to hear the media report about how Donald Trump was potentially going to do with white women voters, and he held steady with them. I thought that was pretty remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, we have different issues that impact people around the country in different ways, and as we've talked about on the public square, as we've talked about on 1850 Main Street, the Democrats put all their eggs in one basket. That basket being abortion. They thought abortion would be the issue that would move people, and they found out that it wasn't, because people had an understanding of what the Dobbs decision meant, and then it was back in the states. And that's why you had the number of states you had voting on abortion measures this go around time, because they knew it wasn't a federal issue.
And again, back to social media, back to YouTube, things like that, which have their own dangers. When we talk about the fact that Trump had a very smart and shrewd YouTube and social media and X and all that kind of stuff, that's not a blanket endorsement of every single thing that all those people say. But I think
So if you disclaimer, and I know we got a response to this. If you go listen to Joe Rogan, if you go listen to Theo Vaughn, if you go listen, I mean, you
may or may not be their target audience. I'm not even the target audience for some of this stuff.
You may or may not hear words that you didn't think you would hear. I think that was the shock that people got when they, you may see him smoking something if you're watching live Joe Rogan. So don't be surprised by that is all we're saying. Disclaimer.
Yes, but you have to understand the left has a tendency to look upon those types of platforms as somehow less than. They call them frat boys and bros, and it's sort of pejorative. And it's not that that's necessarily an inaccurate term, but they're using it in a pejorative. Well, guess what? Those people are part of your country too, and those people also vote. Young people voted. This article, again, in Time says Trump boosted his support from 32% 4 years ago to 54% majority among first-time voters. If your movement doesn't have a youth component to it, it may not survive.
Thanks for stopping by at 1850 Main Street. We're glad you're here. Do you want to learn more about what's really going on behind the scenes in public policy? Tune in to the Public Square on over 200 radio stations coast to coast, or download the free Public Square mobile app from your app store. Just look for The Lamppost. Find out what America's talking about at thepublicsquare.com.
I've been using what you said on 1850 Main Street the last time on all my radio interviews when you talked about the coalition of the Amish as well as the billionaire who designed something to catch a rocket out of the sky. We have people that won't use automobiles, and we have people that want to colonize Mars. You have them all on the same team. What drives it? Here's the other thing that I think moves some voters and some of those first-time voters. The left dominates academia, right? And they always talk to us about degrees and how smart they are and they know. And I think people got fed up and sick of people telling them, we know what's best for you. We know, no one wants to be told that. And you hear them say that, well, I have a PhD or I have a master's degree. We are the educated. We are the educated. You know what? Give me some folks with street smarts. And I think people realize that and say, wait a minute, you don't know what's best for me. Because that's the other thing. If you just look at a map. We've all looked at the map. The coastal elites want to make the decision for everyone else. Now you can carve out a little bit of Chicago in there too, in Northern Illinois.
The county map was the one that blew my mind. If we can put up the county map, just a little piece on the screen, that would be amazing. The county map tells you almost everything you need to know about this election.
And I think that's what we're going to talk about next time on 1850 Main Street. We're going to dive into the numbers. We're going to go deep into the numbers and talk about where votes moved, where they didn't move, what counties changed, what's different from 2020 and 2016, and how, just it's changed a lot. And when you look at the policies that have changed, we'll use Ohio as an example. If you look at the county map in Ohio from 2006, when Sherrod Brown was elected as United States Senator, to 2024, when he was unelected, and you look at that change, then you look at the policies, what those core policies were of the left, the Democrat Party, or what Sherrod Brown said when he wanted to be elected in 2006, compared to the things that are being discussed today. They're night and day. They're night and day.
Yeah, and that's where I think any movement, not just a political movement, but I think about this with, from a Christian perspective. You have to know how to communicate with people that are living today. And so any political movement, any kind of movement that thinks they can dismiss the people and not listen to them, not talk to them, not actually care about them. Like, again, when you read some of these breakdowns, the disdain that for human beings you can hear dripping off these reports, especially like you mentioned, people without a college degree, the way that the left-wing media likes to report on Trump getting uneducated people to vote for him, you can just feel the disdain dripping off these people's voices. But you have to actually care about people. So truth never changes, but the way that you talk to people and the way that you reach them might change a little bit. Again, you don't sacrifice truth ever, but you also have to know where people are and know what ways they need to be spoken to.
And some people may be listening to this and saying, oh, this is just a place for Donald Trump apologists. We're not making, we're not here to defend Donald Trump.
We're just letting you know what happened.
Yeah,
We're just
this
breaking
is what
down
happened. You want to know what happened? Watch, I think probably Wednesday, I'm guessing Wednesday, The View set records for their audience because I'm guessing people wanted to watch them melt down and go crazy. And they got into a little bit of a tiff because one host, and I apologize, I don't know names, and she tried to explain.
You're not the target demo for The View, I don't think so.
Seriously?
I don't think so.
Okay, all right. Well, if you say so. She was explaining, and I believe Sonny, I do know one of the names, jumped in and
Whoopi, we all know Whoopi.
And she was, we all know Whoopi. Sonny jumped in and was trying to say, no, that's not the reason. And I'm like, they don't even want to learn from the mistakes that were made. That's how you move forward. Again, to bring sports into it, you watch the film. Where was a team exploited? And how were they exploited? And if the defense messes up, you can't scream at the offense and say, well, it's your fault. And I also listen.
And that's where this Time Magazine article, I think, is helpful. They're trying to look at it and call balls and strikes on it and look at the game film as well.
And this isn't a secret. There's division behind the scenes in the Democratic Party. Yeah. Jill Biden wore head to toe red.
Wow.
Red to go vote on election day. Head to toe. Now you're telling me this woman, she was on the cover of all the magazines, I think Vogue over the summer, she's all the rage. Everything she does is overanalyzed. You're telling me that no one pulled her aside and said, do you know what you're doing? She knew darn well what she was doing.
She had to have.
She knew darn well what she was doing. So you're telling me, that was the division. Joe Biden gives a speech. I think he gave the speech on Wednesday or Thursday. That's, the most smiling, the most happy he's looked in a long time.
I was playing it. My son, Ethan, who's 13, I was just listening to the speech and he goes, what? He goes, why does Biden sound so good right now? He says, why does he sound so clear? He was like in another room. He goes, why does he sound so clear?
I was like, I agree with him.
He thought it was AI. He's like, Dad, that's probably AI. He's like, let me see it. He goes, Dad, bring it over here. Let me see it. Like he's going to tell me. If it's AI, he probably could tell. If that's one thing, you got to listen to your kids. Yeah. If you want to know the pulse of culture, you got to listen to your kids sometimes.
You do have to listen to your kids. And that's what Donald Trump did.
That's exactly what he
listened
did.
to his kid. Mm-hmm. He listened to his kid. And sometimes we get set in our ways. And listen, that doesn't mean we need to listen to our kids when they tell us they want to make super poor decisions. No. But when you're trying to relate and communicate to them, we do need to listen to them. Everybody knows I coach a basketball team. Mm-hmm. And we need warm-up shirts, right? We need warm-up shirts to wear on and they're going to be good-looking, nice shirts. But the AD asked me, do you like these? I did like them. But I called over the team and I said, do you guys like these? And they made some changes.
Did they?
Yeah. They made some changes.
I want to see a before and after.
Well, it was a color change. So it was nothing major, but they wanted it different. I'm like, I'd rather had it the other way. But it was something for them. So let them have a say in it and then listen and try and understand why they want that change. I'll tell you what, kudos to Donald Trump for recognizing that he needed advice from someone else, because I don't know if 2015 or 2016, Donald Trump would have been willing to take that advice from someone. Now, I also do understand the person he took the advice from does have the correct last name.
Well, there was someone without the last name Trump that Donald Trump did give a lot of responsibility to during the campaign, and that's Susie Wiles as well. And she tasked Alex with the social media stuff, who then went to Barron.
Who went to Donald, who Donald said go to Barron. Susie Wiles, if I'm not mistaken, and this is another place where Democrats continually put their feet in their mouth the entire campaign. If I'm not mistaken, she sent a tweet to Mark Cuban last week or 10 days ago, because Mark Cuban made the comment that Donald Trump is never surrounded by strong, powerful women. Wow. And she, I believe, again, correct me if I'm wrong, which I'm sure listeners will, I believe she had a response to that to say, again, why would Mark Cuban say that? And he came back and apologized for it. But here's the deal. Here's the reality of it too.
Is like Melania isn't a strong woman as well. I mean, that's an insult to your wife, to your daughter, the whole thing.
Here's the thing about it too, is the fact of all these guys are overexposed and doing all these interviews, doing things. Podcasters, listen, Joe Rogan talks 3 hours multiple times a week. You don't think he's going to say something that people leave scratching their heads about? So
we pray before every time we turn these cameras on, at least we try to remember to. Dear God, please help us not to mess this up.
Yeah.
If you're talking into a mic, you might say something stupid.
I say something stupid when I'm not talking into a mic.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yes. That being said, but yes, Susie Wiles, and now she was just named
Chief of Staff. First woman ever to be so named. And it was interesting. I don't remember. I don't think that the Trump team made a huge big deal about it. They just did it. They thought she was the best person for the job, and they did it. And they ended up breaking a glass ceiling in the meantime. And so I thought that was a pretty cool thing to do.
Yes, it was. Great thing to do. Next time we're together, I believe we're going to dive into numbers, right? We're going to take a look at some counties. We're going to take a look at what it looked like. And we're also going to take a look at maybe who watched on election night. Talked about some media stuff as well in that aspect.
That'll be fun. And I think Dave will be back with us at that point.
Yes. Yes.
Nice.
The conversations are just getting started. To get connected, check out 1850mainstreet.com. We don't data mine anyone or sell your information. Subscribe today so you don't miss a single conversation. We'll see you next time here at 1850 Main Street.